Good morning and welcome to There is a Method to the Madness, my podcast talking about different issues of physical fitness. My name is Rob. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer and owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs. It's morning time. As I said, good morning, but it's kind of late morning. I put in a nice 22-mile bike ride this morning and did some other gym work to prepare for the busy week ahead so we can take some time off at the end of the week, getting a little bit ahead of the game here, getting ready to make this podcast right now. I'm going through my list of MaxFit principles. They're the principles that guide our thinking and training programs at my gym. And I'm going to pick up on what I have as numerical number 9. And that is warm up and cool down. What they are, what they mean to us. Okay, so warm up. What does warm up say? Warm up. Okay. Warm up means raise your core temperature. That's all it means. Okay. So if our core temperature is elevated above our normal temperature, which they used to say is 98.6, but now we know that it ranges anywhere from, say, 97 to 99. Boy, did I learn that over COVID, checking that temperature left and right as I had COVID and trying to determine and obsess over what was normal and all that. So anyway, rarely is it 98.6. It is we all have sort of a preset where we are. But if we are going to exercise, and that could be strength training, cardiorespiratory, or sports, we need to raise that core temperature above our normal. So that means on hotter days, you don't have to warm up nearly as much. On colder days, you're going to have to warm up a little bit more. Our best indicator as to whether we're warmed up or not is if we're breaking a sweat. I mean, for me, that's my rule of thumb. I mean, I like to, on most days, warm up as quickly as possible because I'm kind of on a timeline and I'm trying to be efficient. So I don't want my warm up to take forever. So I will, progressively add a little bit of intensity depending on what I'm doing until I start feeling a nice sweat coming on. And then my body is warmed up. So rule number 1 is you're warmed up when you start breaking a sweat. That's a great indicator. The American College of Sports Medicine has put out guidelines forever on this, and they say anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes of warm-up is effective. And, overall that's true. If you're in a really cold climate and you're a really elite endurance athlete and you're going for a super long ride or run, the warm-up could actually be a little bit longer than that, until we get into what our pace or our program is going to be. We should always be working our way towards that. But 5 to 15 minutes is a good rule of thumb. And again, the key is we're warmed up if we start breaking a sweat. So if it's a really warm day, we could, warm up in less than that. That's the bottom line. As far as what is the type of mode we should use for warm-up, well, warm-up is not stretching. It is flat out not stretching. That's one of the biggest myths we have along with spot reduction out there in the exercise world. So people will say, shouldn't I stretch before I do that? It's like, well, yeah, if you want to pull a muscle. I mean, in other words, like stretching a cold muscle is the quickest way to pull it. You'll notice when athletes pull a muscle out on the field or on the hardwood playing basketball, volleyball, a lot of times they are in a stretched position when they pull it and they're not adequately warmed up. Now, warm-up doesn't prevent all muscle pulls. I mean, some of these guys that pull hamstrings playing football and basketball are in the fourth quarter. I mean, obviously, or maybe I shouldn't be so arrogant. Not, I don't know if it's obvious or not, but you can pull muscles at any time, even if you are effectively warmed up. But you're going to be far less likely to pull a muscle or a tendon if you are warmed up, okay? So the mode is going to be light cardiorespiratory exercise, light movement basically. So not stretching, light movement. That could be a walk, a jog, an easy cycle. It could be some dynamic movements like, abdominal work like crunches and body weight squats. We call dynamic movements things that are like dynamic warm-ups. That's just body movements that are not so pigeonholed into light cardio like we normally think. But sometimes with some of my 30-minute clients, we'll do a warm-up of body weight squats, we'll do a warm-up of crunches, we'll do things like that. But the bottom line is we're moving, we're not stretching. So that's what your warm-up should be, bottom line. And we are going to have a better workout if we warm up. While I'm talking about warm-up, it's very important to state that a lot of times people want to be relatively cool when they strength train. I don't hear it too much when people are outdoors and there's no control over it. But a lot of times people want to be cool when they're working out. They want the temperature of the gym set really low. That's not very good for you. Number one, we're more likely to pull muscles if it's cold. Now, I'm not saying that happens very often, because typically when people start strength training, they are pretty adequately warmed up. But it could happen, and it's really better to work out in a neutral temperature, meaning, somewhere in the 70s if you're talking about indoors. I'm a little weird with that. I like it a little bit warmer. I love to sweat. Sweating is so good for you. Studies have been shown that the more you sweat, the more endorphins you're releasing. It cleanses your pores. It's good for your skin. Sweating is really, really good. But I understand that not everybody likes it that way. If it were me, I turn the air off when I work out. Nothing's like training in my garage that I'll do sometimes in the middle of summer. It's like, okay, now that's hot. That's taking it too far. But an indoor gym with the air on, even if the air is high, for me is absolutely perfect. But we don't want to lose our warm-up per se and go into a cold facility and start working out. We want to keep that temperature pretty elevated. We always want to keep it elevated above normal while we're working out. Most of the time that takes care of itself. Okay, so that's a warm-up, okay? 5 to 15 minutes, but I focus more on if I'm sweating versus time, light cardio or light movements, and stretching is not a warm-up. Pretty simple, right? Cool down is to basically return venous pooling back to normal. What that means is that if we're working out really, really intensely, it's good to wind down through your workout. Don't just stop if you're running. This is more really concerning cardiorespiratory exercise. But you should basically reverse what you did with your warm-up. So with the warm-up, it's kind of a gradual build into what you're doing, holding your pace for whatever you're doing. And then as you cool down, it should be kind of a come back down to earth type of thing. But the whole reason for that is, it's sort of like it's misnamed. Cool down, warm down, other people call it warm down. The bottom line is your core temperature is not going to come back down to like normal until you're showered, changed, whatever you're going to do. It might, depending on the intensity and your fitness, it's going to come down sooner, but it's going to stay elevated. So that is not the purpose of a cool down. Purpose of a cool down is to return your venous pooling back to normal, meaning that when you exercise, again, this is mostly concerning cardiorespiratory exercise where you're using your legs. It could also be if you did a leg workout, if you did a lot of squats and things like that. But basically, it's your calf muscles that pump your blood back up to your heart. So if you're doing a lot of exercise on your feet, like running would be it's mostly running, but also cycling, a lot of the blood begins to pool in your lower portion of your legs. It just does. It takes your heart to pump that blood back up. So if there's a whole lot of circulation going on and a whole lot of blood pooling down in your legs and you just stop, well, that's not as good for your recovery. You could feel a little dizzy. That's always been the saying. I haven't really noticed that with people. But the bottom line is you want to return that system back to normal gradually. So the whole point of a warm down, cool down, which again is misnamed, is to simply get that blood back into circulation and use those muscles by walking a little bit more or cycling a little bit more to take all of that pooling blood and the circulation that's at a high rate and bring it back to normal. ACSM, once again, uses the 5 to 15 minute length. That could be a little bit long. It really just comes down to how long, how hard, and how much time you have. But I do advocate some form of a cool down. After you run or after you bike, that's pretty easy, right? I mean, after you run, just walk for a few minutes. Just don't go right indoors, Let the system sort of get back to normal. After your bike or as you're finishing up your bike ride, crank it down into an easier gear and spin it out a little bit. With strength training, bring in a little bit of stretching after your exercises, and that'll help those muscles. But move around a little bit. Again, it's not as critical as when you are doing simply one thing over and over and over. Okay? So warm down, warm up. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Warm up, warm down, both critical. Hope now you know what they mean. There's a method to the madness. It's called warm up for a reason. Raise that core temperature. Okay, until next time, stay fit and be well.